Steve Locker and Adam Scherer with you for an 9-game baseball slate, and a really good one at that. I don't know about you, Adam, but I like this one. I also like what some of these projected ownerships look like. I don't want to say easy fades, but definitely easy to come in underweight on a few of these guys who are super high priced. And one thing that earlier in the day I was considering is some days you can go away from chalk hitters and go with the chalk pitchers and vice versa. A lot of these chalk hitters I really like today, but I have no problem getting away from some of these chalk arms at all.
Yeah, you and I are on the same page. I think it's a really fun tournament slate. It's also a good day and I know we talk about it a lot with baseball, how it's different than other sports, but if you're playing cash and you're playing tournaments, it's a day where I think you can really easily end up on, these popular guys in cash because they're not bad plays, but then being very different in tournaments. There's just so much pitching with similar upside, even if they're in bad spots at lower ownership. I'm really excited about this one. I always like slates where I can get creative at pitcher and then just roster whatever bats I want.
No question. Well, we've got 9 games. We're going to break them all down thoroughly for you. We're happy to have all of you here, by the way. And we will pop it off with Baltimore and Oakland. Well, okay. Here's the thing. Oakland should score a good amount of runs. Dan Straley is pitching on 2 days rest. Oakland has the highest implied run total on the slate. Take that for, I'm sorry. No, I think it's the second highest now. It is at 5.5. 5.5, yeah. Baltimore's bullpen this season has the third highest xFIP. They're allowing more home runs per 9 than any other team. It is early, but they have been rocked, Adam, and they have definitely been taxed in terms of just running through a ton of arms. And then Frankie Montas on the other side. I said this to you last time he started. He's not bad. He's just not very good, but he also hasn't been, he has allowed 2 home runs this year, but he's kind of just your average pitcher, doesn't get a lot of strikeouts, but also doesn't get trashed very often either. Let's at least talk about the pitching situation, and then we'll jump into the bats here, which is where I think we're going to spend the most of our time.
Yeah, I think the bats is where we spend most of the time too. I think I could, on the 2 pitcher sites on DraftKings and Yahoo, I could talk myself into some interest of either pitcher if they were a little bit cheaper. Straley, because I expect Oakland to be very popular, and Straley does have a slider that generates a lot of swings and misses. He throws it a lot to right-handed hitters, so there's at least a path for him to have success, but I don't think that path gets there enough that I'm really looking to pay $7,500 for him. And the same goes for Frankie Montas, who, like you said, he's not a bad real-life pitcher. He generally does a pretty good job of run prevention, but if I'm paying over $8K for someone, I would like him to have more strikeout upside than Frankie Montas generally has, and so I don't anticipate getting there all that often either, even though it is a favorable matchup against Baltimore. So I am more interested in the bat specifically from the Oakland side.
Me too. But another thing, you talk about Straley's price. How many pitches do you think he throws? He threw 44 pitches on the 7th. Do you really see him throwing more than 70?
Yeah, also a good point there. I mean, we kind of have an example of how Brandon Hyde, the Orioles manager, already handled this when he pulled David Hess at 82 or 84 pitches with a no-hitter going after he had pitched a few days before. Very similar situation. Hess had come in relief on opening day and thrown around 40 pitches and then pitched 2 or 3 days later. Very similar situation to Straley here. Straley also, he was without a team from the end of spring training until now, so I would think that there would be some concerns anyway about how stretched out he is regardless. So I think that's another, really good point about how much we can actually expect out of him.
And normally, when you have a starter who likely will only go, I don't know, I'd say Straley 4, maybe 5 innings if he doesn't get totally blown up early on. Normally there's a little trepidation there, but a whole lot less when you're dealing with such a rough bullpen. I look at this game and I say, okay, Chris Davis and Matt Chapman have hit righties really well. No one hit more home runs against righties last season than Chris Davis. Both of them can hit lefties too. And then you know what? If you're looking at guys like Kendrys Morales or you're looking at a Jurickson Profar, they're both bats, or they both bat from both sides of the plate. We prefer them from one side, but they can, if a lefty comes in, they'll probably still get to hit. This lineup overall, to me at least, Adam, is one that really nicely fits this matchup when you probably are going to see a decent amount of bullpen arms. I know they'll be popular. I know they have a high total, but it's hard once again not to like this Oakland Athletics offense.
Yeah, if you're getting away from Oakland or if you're going underweight on Oakland bats, it's purely because you want to be contrarian amongst your hitters.
Right.
I'm not like I don't think there's a problem with that. If every day of a MLB season you were to just fade the top one or two on stacks, you would be fine. Um, but the thing with Oakland today is they're also very affordable on every site, especially every site. I mean, they have multiple guys, 2,500 or less on FanDuel. Outside of Davis and Chapman, they're all cheap on Yahoo. DraftKings apparently heard everyone complaining about their pricing, and now you can just do whatever you want. So it's not even like yesterday where you had to pay more for some guys like Chris Davis than you did for some bats in Coors Field. These guys are just all cheap, and there's power throughout the lineup. You mentioned Morales after you talked about Chapman and Davis. I absolutely love him. 3,700 on DraftKings, cheap across the board though.
Batting fifth too.
Yeah, I love the matchup for him against Straley. He's one of the guys that really stood out for me. So it's a stack where I think I'm more inclined, instead of just fading them because of high ownership, I'm more inclined to take advantage of the fact that people really, really care about spots in the batting order, and knowing that you can get to some of these guys at the bottom like Laureano and Profar, and that's how you can differentiate your lineups. You don't have to just avoid a team in one of the best spots on the slate.
Yep, absolutely. Profar may be showing signs of things to come. Got off to an awful start, but had a 4-hit explosion yesterday with a home run and 3 other singles, 5 RBIs for Profar. But really, all in all, whether it's Straley that's going to pitch the bulk of this game or the bullpen, you're not too worried about it. And you've got Morales at a very, very cheap price. Do you think, just a brief answer, do you think that DraftKings heard the player feedback and made adjustments, or do you think that they were just toying with things early on and this is back to the way it should be?
I would say yes, as far as they heard the player feedback, but I also don't want to give them that much credit. So
That's kind of the thing. They'd never cared in the past.
Right. I think that it's more likely they just don't really have a handle on what they're doing.
Right. I think that could very much be the case. But you know what they did do? They maybe took a page out of FanDuel's book and dropped Chris Davis down $2,000 literally overnight. He went from $4,000, wasn't in the lineup, to $2K. That is the dead minimum. Okay.
Yeah.
He's down there with guys that likely will not see a plate appearance at the major league level this season. Okay. That's where he's at. Chris Davis is $1,500 beneath those guys on FanDuel. And then on Yahoo, Chris Davis is, take a guess what his price is on Yahoo.
$10?
$1. $1. So, I mean, this is like, I've never seen this happen before across all sites.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And then the Orioles just have decided to stop playing him anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, of course. But to me, I still find it to be very, very funny. Like, across sites, they have all said, you know what? They're right. He's just not. It's kind of crazy. I think they should have given him. They should have at least let him get a hit before benching him for the rest of his career. But what are you going to do? He's not in the lineup today. It doesn't matter. I just find it funny that he's $1 on Yahoo, $2K flat on DraftKings, and 500 on FanDuel. 2 of the 3 sites, he is significantly beneath minimum salary.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was hoping he'd be in the lineup today once I had seen his DraftKings price fall, because I was just really looking forward to 30% of the field taking a 0 at first base. It was kind of like the Colorado leadoff hitter yesterday, where it would have been like a really easy play in cash games just to get the money. But in tournaments, you're just fading a very, very, very likely 0 at really high ownership. So I was actually kind of excited for it to play out, but he's not there.
Yep, you were right about that. I mentioned on today's article in the deep dive, the law of averages suggests that he should get a hit sooner or later, but there's been nothing logical about the path that he's taken.
Yeah, I mean, he hit the ball hard a few times his last game. For whatever that's worth. He also struck out like 2 or 3 more times.
No matter how bad you are, you need to get a little unlucky to go for 52 straight plate appearances without a hit. I don't care what anyone says.
No question.
All right, want to talk about Baltimore bats here. There's not a ton for me. Cedric Mullins is leading off. Dwight Smith batting second. Jonathan Villar in the 3 spot, and cleaning up is Trey Mancini. Nunez, Ruiz, Ricard, Sucre, and Alberto to round out the bottom of the lineup. I've had interest in the Orioles at times this week, not as much today. And I think the reason for that isn't because I have a ton of respect for Frankie Montas, Adam, but just because there are a good 6-7 teams that I really like offensively for this slate.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, you have the Orioles hitters have been priced the good Oriole the better than the rest of the Orioles hitters
Nice work.
have been priced up as well. With Jonathan VR at like 4,600 on DraftKings, Mancini's at 4,500. Pulling up FanDuel pricing, you have VR at almost 4K, Mancini's at 3,800. Yahoo, I think, is similar as well.
Mancini on Yahoo is
21.
$21 and VR is up there at 22.
22.
So right, none of them are cheap.
Right, so none of them are cheap. Mancini, I'll say, maybe is actually good. Like I'm optimistic about him. VR, we have enough of a track record that I don't think he's a significantly above average hitter, but he's priced like one. And then when you get like DraftKings pricing everyone down from where they had been, but still leaving Mancini and VR in this 4,600 range, now they're more expensive than a lot of guys that you want to play. On top of the fact that I think their price tag has risen too quickly. So I'm not getting to the Orioles.
All right, neither am I. Philadelphia and Washington, Adam. You've got the Philadelphia Phillies. Look, the NL East bullpens have just been god awful to start the season. It's really quite incredible. I mean, you drop a 6 spot on Steven Strasburg in 4 innings and lose, unreal. It's pretty wild. The bullpen imploded. Robles hit a home run late in the game with 2 outs, full count in the 9th. Amazing. But you still have a ton of pop in this Philadelphia lineup. We saw another home run from Hoskins. From Bryce Harper. I think Real Muto had a 3-hit game. There's a ton of guys throughout this lineup that can put up numbers. They have the 3rd highest implied total at 5.1 today. Washington going up against Nick Pivetta is down at 4 runs. But I want to start actually with Pivetta. And it's one of the reasons that I have a lot of interest in Juan Soto today. His fastball has been hammered, Adam, to start the season. Absolutely destroyed. And lefties have always given him problems. Yes, he gets a lot of strikeouts, but this season to start is really bad. And you're looking at a guy in Pivetta who just on the season alone, he's already given up 2 homers, 2 triples, and a double across 30 lefties faced. Look, it's a small sample, but last year he gave up 1.5 home runs per 9 to lefties. Juan Soto last year in 2018, and you can include this year as well. So since the start of last year, he hit fastballs better than all but 5 other players in the entire league. And there are some good fastball hitters on this team. I think Pivetta could struggle once again. Let's get your pitcher breakdown here, and then we'll talk bats.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I dig into Pivetta every start because I really like his stuff. He's got a really good curveball. He brings solid strikeout upside. And for that reason, I'm always somewhat interested in him, especially, right now we have him at 8% ownership. But this is just a really tough matchup when you dig into the stuff that he throws. You mentioned Soto's numbers against fastballs and hard fastballs at that, but Dozier handles them well. Rendon hits them well. Eaton hits them well. You have Matt Adams in the lineup now, who's another left-handed power bat that's inexpensive. It's just a really difficult matchup for Pivetta. Not a lot of strikeouts in the lineup, and also guys that just do not struggle with what he throws. So it really scares me, already with him being a home run prone guy as well. I go through each game and kind of keep a list of StatCast matchups that I like. And there actually weren't a ton on the slate that really stood out where a hitter just kind of crushes everything that a pitcher throws. And I don't know how a pitcher would even try and get them out. But Soto is one where I don't know what Pivetta does to get Juan Soto out here, but I would like to have a lot of the Juan Soto side of it. And then, obviously throwing in, guys like Rendon, Dozier, Eaton, you get Matt Adams, you get just high upside in a good hitter's park against a worn out bullpen after last night's game, and a pitcher in Pivetta that, while he can be dominant, he also can give up a lot of home runs in a hurry.
No question, man. While we're on the topic, just before I forget, what do you make of Aaron Nola allowing another pair of home runs yesterday, broke down in the 6th inning, and has really had a bumpy ride to start the season? Anything that you noticed that stood out, or was it just another spot where the changeup was getting hit and the curve was getting hit and they were flat?
Yeah, I didn't see the game and I haven't gone back through his stuff yet. All I know is that I had a tournament, I had a lineup finish very high in tournaments with Aaron Nola, so that was a little annoying. But yeah, I mean, it was a tough matchup. So obviously that that's the one thing I do know. But it's clearly concerning that he wasn't getting strikeouts, and then finally he gave up a couple home runs. So certainly something to dig into more.
Yeah, and we will next time he's on the slate. Just didn't want to forget about that. Jeremy Hellickson, I mean, look, this is a guy who the one thing that he's done well for his career is get a lot of ground ball double plays. Like it's really the only reason he does anything even remotely decent. Uh, he has an 18% strikeout rate against righties since 2016. So, even against same-handed hitters, he hasn't been great. You have a decent amount of bats on this Phillies team like Segura who are going to make contact and put balls in play. But where do you stand on the Phillies as a team? We've already broken down the Washington Nationals, both agreeing that Juan Soto makes for a great play and a few other options as well. But how about these Philly bats at home here with the third highest total on Wednesday?
Yeah, really like them too. Hellickson is not a guy that misses a lot of bats, and you have just a lot of power from both sides of the plate in the Philadelphia lineup. They're also always this season, I think, going to be an appealing team to stack because you get a good shortstop in Segura, you get the best catcher in baseball in JT Realmuto, so you're automatically covering two of the tougher positions to fill out, and then you're getting high upside guys like Hoskins, Harper, McCutchen around them. So it's always going to be an appealing team to stack. Today's no different. I like the price tags on these guys. I like the matchups. From a pitch type standpoint, Harper does stand out. Same reason I liked him yesterday. He's just absolutely obliterated changeups, which is the pitch that righties most frequently use to get lefties out, and it's a pitch that Hellickson uses quite a bit. So I like it from that standpoint for Harper, but obviously I would give the advantage to Harper regardless. I just think that there's a ton of upside throughout this lineup, and again, it's a Nats bullpen that had to throw a bunch of innings yesterday.
All right. I'm with you. And then, taking a look at the prices on some of these guys, you're not overpaying for a lot of these Philly bats. And that's another thing that's pretty nice. Looking at Yahoo, Gene Segura is $16. I think he's the like eighth highest priced shortstop. McCutchen is pretty reasonably priced as well. You have to scroll to find him. Obviously you're going to pay a lot for Bryce Harper, but in the $15,000 guaranteed 3K to first tournament, these guys would make for a really solid stack. And an interesting thing is you can play 6 players from a team on Yahoo, which you can't do on DraftKings or FanDuel, making stacking a little bit more interesting here, especially where you have these 10 max or 10 entry max and not 150.
Yeah, and I think that's something to take advantage of. I think it was Jonathan Bale's book about baseball, like his original one that came out years ago, that broke down the numbers of like how many players you should have in your stacks. Getting to 6, if I remember it correctly, was like a huge advantage over anything else. So certainly
Really?
something to take advantage of on Yahoo.
Really?
I could be misquoting that, but I'm almost positive I remember it correctly.
Yeah, definitely not saying you're wrong. I've thought about it myself, haven't run the numbers. Um, I've always wondered, like, is 6 too much? Is
Right.
like with tournament winning lineups, is 6 too much? Is it just right? Um, yeah, it's definitely something that would make a lot of sense to go back and revisit.
Yeah.
Looking at 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, obviously something I haven't looked at in a while since it hasn't been relevant for the last couple of years. But with Yahoo letting you get 6, I think that if I remember correctly, that's what it was, and certainly worth revisiting.
So, who are your top bats from Philly here?
Harper, number 1, Real Muto, number 2, when you factor in position, Hoskins, 3, Segura, 4, McCutchen, Franco, Herrera, Caesar.
All right. You want to move on?
Yeah, all the bats in that game.
Yeah, pretty much. New York Mets and Minnesota. Noah Syndergaard, Jake Odorizzi. Look, if this holds true and Noah Syndergaard remains close to 50% owned on DraftKings, right now we have him. He's down to 37, so he was higher throughout the day, but still projected to be the highest owned pitcher on the slate. And then on FanDuel, 26%, second highest owned projected pitcher. And is Noah Syndergaard wildly overpriced? No, I'm not saying that. But he's also the most expensive arm on the slate, going up against the Minnesota team that, I'm not necessarily sure what to make of this Minnesota team yet. They beat the hell out of DeGrom yesterday. It's clearly only one start. but they do have a few guys that aren't going to strike out all that much against righties. Let's talk about Noah Syndergaard, because right now I just see so many pitchers that I really love with lower projected ownership, and he's not one of them. Maybe you share or have a different opinion.
Nope, I'm right there with you. I will probably end up with Syndergaard in cash games because I do have him projected as my highest scoring pitcher, but I just don't think that that he should be as highly owned in tournaments as we're projecting him right now, for a couple of reasons. For one, the same issue with Minnesota today that you and I talked about yesterday with DeGrom. We didn't say not to roster DeGrom. We didn't say that DeGrom wasn't the best pitcher on the slate. Like, we'd be lying if we tried to say that we had said that. But we did point out that the top of this order with Max Kepler, Jorge Polanco, Astudillo, and then Eddie Rosario, not only are they competent hitters, but they're guys that are really difficult to strike out. And when you're talking about an expensive pitcher, if these guys are putting the ball in play, even if they're making outs, it lowers their upside. But also, obviously, balls in play can very easily turn into bad luck. And bad luck is something that we've seen from Syndergaard throughout his career because he just does not have fastball command. Stuff's really good, doesn't know where it's going. It leads to him getting quote unquote unlucky because guys just stick their bat out and hit little looping line drives into the outfield, and his BABIP ends up being above league average, but it's because he can't command his pitches. So that's a problem that's actually plagued him throughout his career. And when you have guys like this that are going to put the ball in play, it can be an issue. Not to mention, there's no true base stealers at the top, but they do have enough speed, Rosario, Polanco, Kepler, to steal on Noah Syndergaard. So it's a spot where it can get ugly for him pretty quickly, at least in terms of him not having a ceiling outing. And at that kind of ownership, while there's pitchers that are in scary matchups, if you look at the ownership that we have projected, we have James Paxton looking at DraftKings at 1/4 the ownership.
Yep.
It's a bad matchup for Paxton, but I think he beat Syndergaard enough, more than 1 out of 5 times. Same goes for Jack Flaherty against the Dodgers. Same goes for Brendan Woodruff against the Angels.
Dude, I'll throw Kenta Maeda. I will throw Kenta Maeda in there going up against a St. Louis team that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 righties in the lineup, and he's dominant against righties, and he threw over 100 pitches in his first start.
I agree with you there. I mean, I would throw Nick Pivetta in there at 150 ownership as just someone that I think can be a better play than Syndergaard, more than the ownership suggests. So it's really just saying, like, I don't think that it's a spot like I'll be underweight in tournaments, I would expect, and I won't feel bad about it.
What you're clarifying is that you're not saying Noah Syndergaard is going to have an awful game.
Right.
Just that there are a lot of other pitchers. And in today's deep dive, he was the first player I talked about because I wanted to get it out of the way early. And it was just more so that when you look at some of the comparable pitchers, right? Whether it be Maeda, whether it be Paxton, who has had some monster games against basically the same Houston lineup last season. And I just say that to point out that he can have great games against good teams, particularly this one. It's not just like, oh, maybe they can do as well as him. These guys have monster ceilings as well, as particularly James Paxton.
Yep. If Noah Syndergaard were 40% owned every single slate that he pitches for a season, and you just never rostered Noah Syndergaard at $10,400, I'd be shocked if you lost money because of that.
Absolutely. No question about it. And again, not saying he's a bad pitcher or that he won't have a good game, but at 10-4, you don't need to jump on board 40% ownership.
Yeah, especially on slates like this where there's question marks about other pitchers, sure, but there are so many high upside arms here.
Yep.
And the hitters there are hitters in such good spots that I would much rather just try and take the high upside arms here and hope that Syndergaard goes out there and gets you like 16 points.
Well, that's what I was talking about at the beginning of the show. I said it in the deep dive that I don't really have an issue with targeting a lot of chalk hitters today because I think I'm going to be very off the map with pitching, and I'm okay with that. It doesn't mean all of the hitters I'm targeting are going to be the most popular at their position, but I don't have nearly as much concern about it. If Syndergaard's going to be that popular, and we'll get to Darvish and a couple of other arms as well. What do you make of Jake Odorizzi? Got blown up in his last start against Philly. Didn't get out of the first inning, Adam. And that was coming off of a 2019 debut where he struck out 11 Indians in 6 innings. He's definitely not the Odorizzi we saw last start, and he's certainly not the Odorizzi we saw in his first start. He's an average pitcher, but what I'm saying is we shouldn't overreact one way or the other.
Right. I didn't expect him to continue doing what he did in that first start, and I didn't like. I don't think that he's as bad as he was against Philly. That was a spot that was just it was a bad matchup for him anyway. I don't really like this one against the Mets either, though. He's more expensive than I want to get to, and I just have respect for this Mets lineup. You have good lefties here in Nimmo, Cano, and Conforto. They're difficult outs, but then you have Peter Alonso, who's hitting really well. And I don't consider Odorizzi a reverse splits guy anymore. I think that ended a couple years ago when he added a good breaking ball to his mix
Yep.
and finally found a way to get righties out. But he'll still give up power to him. He's still not lights out against them. So it's still a scary matchup against Alonso. You have Wilson Ramos, who's a good hitting catcher. Jeff McNeil's not an easy out. So it's just not this, pushover Mets lineup that it was last season at times. And I just don't see the need to get to Odorizzi. I'd rather be looking to some one-offs here from the top of this Mets lineup.
So as far as hitters go in this game, it's not a game that I have a ton of interest in, but I'm definitely not opposed to a dirt cheap Brandon Nimmo leading off. I don't care if he's struggled and he's struck out a lot to start the season. He's very, very inexpensive. You are right. DraftKings pricing has changed quite a bit since like yesterday. But also though, you look at Yahoo, Brandon Nimmo is $11. So he's discounted pretty much everywhere. 2,600 on FanDuel. I get it. He hasn't been very good, but we can't ignore that you're still looking at a leadoff hitter who had a really solid rookie season, has enough pop in his bat, and at this price could definitely pay it off in spades. But who are your one-offs here for the Mets?
Yeah, I'm with you on Nimmo, Michael Conforto. I love the price tag on Robbie Cano at second base. I like everyone 1 through 5 as a one-off. Like I think they all have power upside. I think that they're all reasonably priced. Alonso probably the most difficult to get to since we've already just from the games we've talked about. You have Hoskins, you have Morales, you have I think there was Matt Adams. So first base is tough, but I like the entire 1 through 5 or 1 through 6 for the Mets.
All right. You want to move on here?
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Houston and New York because I like both pitchers from this game. And Colin McHugh, well, by the way, let me just get this out of the gate when we're talking about the totals here. You've got by the way, Minnesota does have the lowest implied total on the slate, but I mean, it doesn't really mean as much when you're looking at pitcher upside and not just run prevention. You have 4.1 total for the Yankees, and for Houston, where's Houston at? They're at 4.5. McHugh is a good pitcher, and there are still guys in this lineup. If you were to go back to 2018, fine. Aaron Judge, Voit, Greg Bird's in the lineup, Clint Frazier, Romine. I thought it would be. And I think Wade is also another guy with a lot of strikeouts. I didn't expect him to be in the lineup, but if you're talking Wade, Romine, Frazier, Bird, Voit, and Judge, those are 6 bats. I'm almost certain that going back to the start of last season, they're 25% or higher strikeout rate against righties, while a guy like Colin McHugh has struck righties out at a really high clip and has put up really solid numbers. 12% swinging strike rate against both-handed hitters over the last 3 seasons. Look, he has a lot of upside, Adam, and while there's some downside here, given the matchup and the Yankees' power, McHugh's strikeout upside is considerable in this matchup.
Yeah, no question there. Everyone in this Yankees lineup, like you said, they strike out except for Gardner and LeMahieu, and
Right.
neither of them have tons of power. For Gardner, he loses the short porch and right that comes with Yankee Stadium. For LeMahieu, he doesn't have Coors Field anymore, and he's basically just a slap hitter. So, Gary Sanchez in the lineup waters it down even more. And McHugh, like you said, the strikeout stuff's good, but especially now, he added a slider to his mix last year when he was in the bullpen. Now he's back in the starting rotation. So far through his first 2 starts, he's thrown it 44% of the time to right-handed hitters with a 27% swinging strike percentage. Overall, against righties through his first couple of starts this year, a 208 expected WOBA, 0.089 expected ISO, 0.038 expected ISO to lefties, where he's also throwing his slider 34% of the time, which is his highest frequency pitch. So to both and the guys from both sides of the plate, and it looks like a really good pitch. He's projected for high ownership, which does scare me because there are still
Good
good
hitters in this
hitters in the
lineup.
Yankees lineup. But at the same time, I think that McHugh has upside at a reasonable price tag. I don't mind if you're playing a lot of lineups, or even if, I mean, honestly, in three max, if you wanted to like leverage stack against him with the Yankees, it's fine. But I expect that I'll have more McHugh than Yankees bats here.
Since 2017, he has a 15% swinging strike rate against righties. You had just mentioned a bunch of the expected rates against these pitches. Overall, that swinging strike rate is pretty elite. So, I mean, I just think that when you're talking about the power, yes, this could be a rough go for McHugh, but he's also a good pitcher, and he's also facing a lot of potential strikeouts. And more than anything, Colin McHugh's 88, like on DraftKings, Colin McHugh's $8,800. On FanDuel, he's 41, or sorry, Yahoo, he's 41. But get this, when you're comparing that to Syndergaard, who's $51, that's a big, big difference. And I wouldn't at all be surprised if Colin McHugh outperforms Syndergaard from a fantasy point standpoint today. I did want to go back to it and look at the strikeout rates versus righties since the start of 2018, Adam. And we're going to read these off quickly and then we'll talk Paxton. So you have Judge at 31%, Frazier at 31%. Granted, some of these aren't a lot of plate appearances, but whatever. Wade at 30%, Bird at 27, Voit at 27, Romine at 25. I mean, that's a lot of strikeouts if McHugh has his stuff working for him.
Yeah, no question. Like it's a scary matchup, and the fact that we do have projected for 25% ownership on DraftKings makes me hesitate a little bit, but I still prefer McHugh to the Yankees.
All right, let's talk about James Paxton. I'll let you kick this one off.
It's a terrifying matchup for him. There's a lot of good righties in this lineup that do not strike out a lot. There is no Alex Bregman, which is good. There's no Robinson Chirinos, which takes away some power upside. If you roster Paxton here, you're just betting on talent. And there's no number that is going to make you feel good about rostering him against Houston here at a similar price tag to Noah Syndergaard, a more expensive price tag than, a Jack Flaherty or McHugh. There's no number that points to that, but I think that in large field tournaments, just betting on talent when there's a sizable difference in ownership between two guys who, aren't very different in terms of ability. You have Syndergaard at 37%. You have Paxton projected at 9. Paxton is just as good as Noah Syndergaard is as far as a pitcher. He hasn't been all that impressive in his first couple of starts, both coming against Baltimore, ran into issues in, just a couple innings in those two starts, but his expected WOBA is 60 or 70 points below his actual WOBA allowed. The swinging strike percentage has been there. He still is getting strikeouts. His stuff looks absolutely fine. So I'm not concerned about it in that regard. I would have no issue. I'm not saying like I'm jamming Paxton into all my lineups or anything like that, but I would have no issue taking a sizable percentage of Noah Syndergaard and just making him James Paxton.
I have zero issues with that whatsoever. And look, not a big BVP guy, but I want to mention these just to show that tough matchups have not been a death knell for James Paxton. Since 2017, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 starts against Houston, 6 scoreless innings with 5 Ks, 7 scoreless with 8 Ks, 7 1-run innings with 7 Ks. Then he went 1 1/3, got rocked for 3 runs. I don't know if he got hurt. Probably. He's hurt a lot. 6 1-run innings with 7 Ks, 7 2/3 innings with 1 run and 6 Ks, 7 scoreless with 8 Ks, and then 5 2/3 with 4 runs and 5 Ks. His success against Houston is significant. Not again, you don't play him because of that, but just showing like, yeah, okay, he has a tough matchup. Paxton has thrived in tough spots before. The run prevention is one thing. Will he get the strikeouts here? I don't know. We'll see. But if James Paxton went out and threw 7 scoreless with 9 Ks, you or me, neither of us will be scratching our heads wondering how it happened. And that's how I look at this tonight.
Right, exactly. Like as a simple example, and it's not this cut and dry, I know, but if you just for simplicity, Syndergaard's 40%, Paxton's 10%. why not have 20% of both? I think that puts you in a like if you were
Right.
just looking at those two pitchers, puts you in a perfectly fine spot in tournaments where you're twice the field on a pitcher who's just as talented as Syndergaard. You're half the field on the pitcher that everyone wants to play.
I'm with you. All right. Where are you at on hitters? I mean, this is not one where I'm even that anxious to get to bats. I mean, you can make the argument that somebody like Correa is still really cheap on FanDuel and such, but I have a lot of respect for both of these guys. Are you taking the chance on bats here?
I have a lot of respect for both guys. I do want to point out Aaron Judge is 4,400 on DraftKings. He's $23 on Yahoo. That makes him cheaper than Trey
Good
Mancini on
point.
DraftKings, and I think the same price on Yahoo.
Yeah.
Aaron Judge is too good for that price tag, so I like him, and especially because it works against as leverage against McHugh, where he's projected to be pretty popular. And then on the other side, Carlos Correa, I he actually graded out as the best play for me from Houston. So at a shortstop position where it's always tough to get power upside and at a reasonable price tag, I like Correa.
Yeah, and Judge still has the platoon advantage, right? So it is still, or I'm
Right.
sorry, no, I was thinking against Paxton. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah, my fault. But he is still very good. How about that?
yeah, that he is.
St. Louis and the LA Dodgers. I mentioned Kenta Maeda a little while ago, Adam. He has a 4-run total against him. St. Louis has an implied total of 4. And then against Jack Flaherty, the Dodgers are at 4.1. Just want to point this out and throw it over your way. I get, like, usually when you have a lot of high priced pitchers, the Dodgers guys are tougher to get to because of the pitch counts. I did think it was interesting though that Kenta Maeda threw 106 pitches in his first start, and then 91 in his second. Got through 5. He labored a bit. That was at Coors Field where he only allowed 1 run, but 91 pitches, but 106 in his first start of the year. To me, that's super important when Dave Roberts is your manager. But let me just take it a step further here. I'm going to break this down a bit. I think it's really relevant just to point out what this guy has done. When you look at ownership, Kenta Maeda on DraftKings right now projected at 2%. Okay, 2% on DraftKings. That's where we'll probably focus most of it. And Yahoo. On FanDuel, 2%. And on Yahoo, our ownership projections are still in beta, but 11%. A little bit different there. But take that 2% and just consider this. He has a career strikeout rate of 31.7% against righties, elite. He has a 30+% K rate in each of his 3 full major league campaigns against righties. And you have 6 righties in this lineup. And he's projected to have virtually 0 ownership, while a guy like Syndergaard will be super high owned. And Maeda threw 107 pitches in his first start against righties for his career. 263 WOBA, 136 ISO, less than a home run per 9, and a 2.88 xFIP. So I will say this much. The St. Louis Cardinals on the season are striking out at 27% against righties. There are some bats in this lineup that can do some serious damage, and I'd be lying if I said that this will be a cakewalk. But Kenta Maeda for his career has been elite versus righties, strikeouts, run prevention, and the like. And the only lefties he has are Matt Carpenter. He's good. Dexter Fowler and Colton Wong, and he faces a pitcher in Jack Flaherty. Just wanted to get that out there. My rant is done. This game is yours to talk about.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. I will just point out, so through his 2 starts this year, he's allowed a 3.48 expected WOBA to righties. But again, one of those games, in Coors Field, but also, and not that matters that much with expected WOBA, but you just expect the pitches to not be, as sharp either. So the swinging strike rate's been 19.2% to righties. Going back to the start of last season, 17.5%. I'm with you. Like, it's a dangerous Cardinals lineup, but I love the low ownership that we have projected on Maeda. I think the upside is absolutely there. 33+% strikeout percentage against righties last season. So I'm with you. I'll gladly be overweight on Kenta Maeda.
All right. Yeah, I wasn't sure where we'd both land on that, but really all it comes down to, simply enough, is he has really good stuff. He's very good against righties, and he's facing a lot of them at virtually 0 ownership.
Yep.
That's all. What do you make of now? Where do you stand on the other side of this one with Jack Flaherty?
I think it's interesting. I think you can make a very similar argument for Flaherty versus McHugh as we made for Paxton versus Syndergaard. I like the upside for McHugh better. I don't think he's a significantly better pitcher than Flaherty in terms of talent. I hate, I hate taking guys against the Dodgers. I had a bunch of Dakota Hudson yesterday because the Dodgers ran out a perfect lineup for him, but that's not the case here. They have their good lineup back in there. They have Seager in there. They have Verdugo in there. 5 lefties in the top 6. Last season, Flaherty struck out 26.5% of lefties, but he also walked over 12%. He wasn't bad against them, but it's still a disadvantage, and he's going against a lot of good ones here. So it's a really scary spot. But he's projected for 9% ownership, while McHugh's projected for 25%. Both of these teams, the Dodgers and the Yankees, have the same implied run total. I don't think that it's a significantly more dangerous spot for Flaherty than it is for McHugh. And so I just don't know that I need to have 2 to 3 times as much McHugh as I do Flaherty.
Fair enough. Yeah, and this slate has one thing in common: a lot of really solid pitchers, and many of them with pretty much no projected ownership.
Yep, in bad spots, but
Right,
it's in tournaments you're just trying to get upside in there and be different somehow. And
and it's baseball. Like,
yeah,
bad
exactly.
spots. It you know, like, you take a really good defense in the NBA, and players will have good games against them, but it's pretty unlikely. Uh, with with baseball, it doesn't take a ton to just have a good, solid game against a good team, especially across a 162 game season.
Yeah, especially when you're like really talented. It's not like we're talking about bad pitchers in bad spots here and just saying, oh,
Right.
they'll be low owned. There's a lot of really talented pitchers on this slate, and ownership is basically being determined by who has the slightly better matchup. I'll take the lower owned guy.
No question. Uh, is there anything else you want to talk about with bats in this one?
No, not really. I mean, Corey Seager should never be $3,700.
This is true. This is true. Rough start to the year, but I mean that he's still too cheap. Let's keep moving then. We'll talk about the Cubs and Pittsburgh Pirates. This one's going to be fun. I'm pretty excited to talk about this for a couple of reasons. Uh, you're looking at 42 degrees at Wrigley Field, 17-mile-per-hour winds blowing in from right center field, and a guy in Yu Darvish whose first 2 starts have been dreadful. He has walked 11 batters in 6 2/3 innings, compared to 6 strikeouts. And so there's a couple ways to look at this. One, most of his stuff looks okay, and you know there's there's nowhere to go but up. Two, he actually I mentioned this to you earlier today. He hasn't thrown the two-seamer once. He's totally scrapped that pitch. Normally, you'd think you get better results, but not when you can't find the strike zone. So the weather should be really favorable for pitching, but it's also sometimes tougher for pitchers to hit their spots and get a feel for the ball in these cold temperatures. What side are you landing on here when we have you Darvish projected to be ownership-wise really, really high at 30% on DraftKings. Everywhere else much lower, but 30% on DraftKings.
I'm landing basically the same spot that I am on Noah Syndergaard, where
Me too.
I'm not going to tell you not to play him in cash games if you end up needing him as an SP2. The Pirates have a 3.3 implied run total. If you just go with Vegas in these spots, you'll do, Vegas and ownership in these spots in cash, you'll do fine. So I don't have a strong stand there, but I have no reason that I need to get to you Darvish at the amount of ownership we have him projected at. This guy has not been able to throw strikes. The Pirates are not a team that normally offers you very much upside for pitchers. They don't have the best collection of hitters, but they do have a lot of guys that put the ball in play. They do have 5 left-handed bats in the lineup here. Frazier doesn't strike out a lot. Bell doesn't strike out a lot. Cabrera doesn't strike out a lot. Moran's an okay hitter from the left side. I don't know what Jason Martin is, but he's a lefty. It's not like it's a team that you would expect Darvish to just breeze through. And then you add in the question marks about what he has left as a pitcher. And I think that it's a spot where, again, I'm just happy being under the field on him. I'll take some chances on other pitchers that I don't think are any more risky than he is.
All right. And I'm with you there. Like, yes, he's cheap, but I mean, really, another way I look at it is you Darvish is inexpensive. Understood. Uh, we're a lot. I think one of the reasons his ownership is projected to be so high is because people are looking at it like, man, there's no reason Darvish should ever be that cheap. Well, really, what is a good game if you're, let's just say Darvish has a good game. What really is a good Darvish game at this point? Like, I just don't see it being a 7 scoreless with 11 Ks. I'm not saying you need that, but even if he does get back to being solid, we have seen nothing whatsoever, going back to last season's 8 starts as well, to suggest that he is the type of guy that shouldn't be 7, 8K.
Yeah, and I think kind of to that point, even if he does, and it's why that I'm, more okay with him in cash than tournaments. Let's say he goes out there and scores like 18 points. That's 18, 20 points. That's good. The price tag is cheaper than it should be, especially in this weather against a
Mhm.
Pirates team that isn't a great offense. But you tell me that if you spread that ownership out to other guys in tournaments, that's going to be like the highest scoring SP2 or something like that.
Right.
I'd be really, really surprised.
For sure. And
But,
that's
yeah.
one of the, what were you going to say?
I was just say it's just in general, like playing chalk in baseball, whether it's pitchers or hitters, there are so many ways to just get around it. And especially when it's guys like Darvish, where we really don't know what he is. He was hurt most of last season. He had some issues last season and the year before, and he hasn't exactly looked good this season. So I just think that you can find other things to do.
Yeah, we're on the same page there. I just don't think it's a spot where you desperately need to get you Darvish into lineups. And I'll say it again, I don't really know even what a good start from Darvish is. If he comes out and throws 7 scoreless with 11 Ks, fine, I'll eat it. I mean, what am I going to do? It just seems unlikely. But I will say, Adam, this game in general, it is not good hitting weather whatsoever. I mean, it's 40 degrees with strong winds blowing in from right center field. So even if I'm not big on Darvish, this doesn't mean that I'm super high on the Pirates. Not to mention that much of Darvish's undoing has been walks anyway, and walks aren't the way you're winning tournaments.
Agreed.
Are you on hitters in this game at all?
Only because I think I like the Pirates are really cheap, and we have Darvish projected for high ownership. Like you could, I haven't built it, but I would think you can pretty easily get like a Noah Syndergaard plus, you know, Paxton, Ray, Flaherty, whoever you want. Stack the Pirates and still get some decent one-offs here while getting leverage on 30% of the field.
All right, that sounds good to me. Hey, by the way, Yahoo Fantasy, as you know, sponsors the deeper dive, and we're grateful for that. The Masters is coming up tomorrow, and they've got some serious contests happening right now that are still yet to be filled. The 20K to first 100K PGA tournament. It's at the top of the lobby. It starts at 11:30 a.m. on Thursday. $100,000 prize pool, $20 entry. 20K to first is one that is certainly worth checking out. And then a few other ones here that they've got going. Keep an eye out. The one, I believe it was $10 entry with zero management fee, already filled, but I would keep your eyes peeled to see if more of them are going to open as we draw closer to this getting underway. But yes, on Yahoo, still halfway filled, $20 entry, 10 max. Though no 150 lineups there. You're not competing against that. 10 max, only 5,700 total entries in this, $20,000 to first and a $20 entry. That's over at yahoo.com. Proud sponsor of the Deeper Dive. Okay, Adam, I want to talk about KC in Seattle because you've got Heath Fillmyer on the mound, who last season showed some serious issues against righties. And unlike the weather in Chicago, it's going to be hot in Kansas City. 82 degrees at first pitch, and you have 16-mile-per-hour winds blowing out to left center field. I get it's not Wrigley winds, but this is still the weather's very conducive to hitting. And, you have Kikuchi, you say Kikuchi for Seattle, Heath Fillmyer for the Royals. Just yes or no question. Are you targeting pitchers in this game?
No.
Okay, so let's go straight into the bats. We can start with the Mariners, who have the highest implied total on this slate, and I have no problem with it. I love Edwin Encarnacion. I love Mitch Haniger here. I have no issues with Bruce or Vogelbach or even Beckham or Narvaez if you need to go to the bottom. But I got a lot of love for E5 and Haniger today, and we'll talk about Kansas City. But bats galore in this game. I really like it. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with you. On top of Phil Meyer being a guy that doesn't miss a lot of bats and that you can get to for power, not a good Kansas City bullpen behind him, which I think is important. The weather, like you said, is favorable for hitters. So I'm with you. I wish that Domingo Santana were in the lineup, but still, Haniger, Bruce, Encarnacion, I think are a pretty solid, three man stack, and you can build around it with some other guys.
All right. How about Kansas City? Merrifield, Hamilton batting second. Did you see what he did yesterday?
Did he score from second on the sac
He
fly?
scored from second on a sac fly. Amazing. It's just incredible. Uh, he's batting second, and you have Mondesi batting third. I'll tell you one thing. There's a lot of speed at the top of this lineup.
They stacked this lineup like they think they can run here, and
I I
yeah,
thought the same thing, and I looked for stolen base numbers for Kikuchi in Japan. I couldn't find anything. Could you? Have you looked?
I couldn't find anything either. I don't even.
Do they even keep
I wouldn't
track
even
of
know
them?
what context to read them in.
Well, that's the thing. Like Baseball Reference has his Japan stats, but they don't have anything and no stolen base data. If
Yeah.
anyone knows where to find that, let us know. That'd be pretty appreciated if it's something that we could actually find. But
He's allowed one stolen base in his 3 starts this season for whatever that.
right. But another thing is Omar Narvaez allowed the second most stolen bases in the league behind Jonathan Lucroy last season. He was responsible for 87 stolen bases while behind the plate.
Yeah, and as you point out very frequently, the big thing is that if Kansas City thinks they can run on him, they're going to try, and
Correct.
you don't lose points for getting thrown out. All you get is upside. So, yeah, I think that it's a pretty interesting spot because of the way they laid out their lineup with Merrifield, Hamilton, Mondesi at the top. Gore is another speed guy that is in the lineup that normally isn't.
Oh
So
God, Terrence! I didn't even know,
yeah,
dude. Terrence Gore. That's crazy.
yeah,
They
Terrence
must
Gore is taking
really
on the
think
Billy Hamilton role at the bottom of the lineup.
I mean, Terrence Gore is a horrible hitter, but if he gets on base, he's going to steal every base he can.
Yeah. So it's a high upside stack as far as the steals go. Um, Merrifield, I think, is a good second base play. Mondesi's price tag is plummeted at shortstop, which makes him a really good play. Billy Hamilton is bad, but he's fast. So, whatever.
And he's batting, second,
Yeah.
which makes
And
it really.
Soler has power for 3,600 hitting fourth.
I just think so. When you're looking at stacks, it's important to consider the upside in these stacks. Uh, the speed on the base paths is so important. A stolen base is worth a double. You
Right.
know, if Merrifield, Hamilton, and Gore steal a base, you got 15 points right there, not including what they did to get on base and if they scored or drove in a run.
Right.
I mean, that's big here, and you still have a little bit of power. I mean, Mondesi and Merrifield are not totally devoid of power against lefties whatsoever. I really like the way that this is constructed. I like Kansas City quite a bit. Kikuchi will figure out whether he's a good pitcher, great pitcher, or not so great at the major league level. But the amount of upside in this lineup is all that really matters.
Right. I mean, the way you win tournaments 9 times out of 10 is home runs and stolen bases, and stolen bases are the one that normally go overlooked. So with a team like Kansas City that is still living in the 1980s and pretending or that stealing bases is better than hitting home runs or something, they're built for this, and they seem fully intent on doing it today.
I'm with you, man. All right, 2 to go here. Live Before Lock coming up after this. So stick around on the Awesemo_com YouTube channel. Arizona and Texas. Robbie Ray, Lance Lynn. One of these guys, Robbie Ray, has dealt with some serious homer problems at home. The other guy throughout his career has struggled mightily away from home, was mostly Busch Stadium, but Lance Lynn on the road, particularly against lefties, it's been a big issue. I really like Peralta and Escobar here. And you have Dyson leading off. I don't know what to make of that necessarily. Ketel Marte is much better from the right side. But let's first get your take on Robbie Ray. Going to be popular.
Yeah, he's another one projected for high ownership that I don't think is a bad play. I think he's, a good pitcher. He certainly has high strikeout upside, especially against the Texas lineup that has a ton of strikeouts in there.
And they're probably going to run at least 4, maybe 5 lefties here.
And if they don't, you're not
Who's
complaining.
it going to be? Right.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so they're going to have lefties in there. Most of their good hitters, most of their good hitters are lefties, and everyone in this lineup strikes out. There's a lot of power, but most of that power comes from the left side. I like Ray. The scary part, and we have it with all the chalk today, one reason or another why they could fail is that he really struggles to throw strikes at home. It's something that I thought was going to change last year with the humidor, because he'd actually talked about not being able to get a grip on the baseball in Arizona, and having more tackiness on that ball I thought was going to help him. But still, at home last season, a 344 WOBA allowed compared to 276 on the road. He walked 13. His walk rate was actually the same, 13.3 and 13.4%, terrible in both. 30.5% strikeout percentage at home, 32.4 on the road, but over 2 home runs per 9 at home compared to 0.6 on the road. He just struggles at home compared to on the road, but he's also priced very favorably for this spot. Like, if Robbie Ray were any lower than this, it would kind of be bordering on absurd. So out of the guys that we've talked about as being chalk, like, the one that I feel the most comfortable, and I use that word kind of lightly, but the most comfortable getting to with the field would be Robbie Ray.
All right, and I agree. Just because I think the lefties in this lineup, number one, a bunch of them will strike out, but even if they go righty heavy, like you said, there's only so much you can do to optimize your lineup against the lefty if you're the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, and Texas also loses their DH here.
Right. So I'm not gonna lie, I still love Robbie Ray's ceiling here, but once again, like, let's just set, you got Robbie Ray at 94, Maeda and Paxton. Paxton's $300 more expensive. That's it. On DraftKings, you're on Yahoo, where you're also playing 2 pitchers. Paxton's 46 and Robbie Ray's 38. So Robbie Ray is the 6th most expensive pitcher. He's cheaper than Kikuchi. That to me is different. Him and Maeda are $38 on Yahoo. I really like those prices. Like, there's no way I'm going to Yu Darvish at 34 when I have Maeda and Robbie Ray at 38. Just saying.
Yeah. One thing that is a little concerning is that Ray's fastball velocity is down a bit, like a couple miles an hour from last season. I don't want to read into that too much, but it is there.
All right. Yeah, and that's a fair point. Let's close it out. Last game here out of Milwaukee. And by the way, just a quick take on Arizona. I mentioned I do like the lefties. Lance Lynn, for his entire career on the road against lefties, mind you, most of his career has come at Busch Stadium, which is friendly to pitchers, but most of Lance Lynn's career against lefties has resulted in trouble. And just to put this out there, he has allowed a 358 WOBA, a near 200 ISO, and 1.3 home runs per 9 to lefties on the road, with a 5.5% K minus BB rate for his career. I do like the lefties here, and David Peralta has quietly been really, really good. 400 WOBA versus righties and a 260 ISO since the start of 2018.
Yeah, I'm with you. I wish there were more in this lineup, but
me too. Not as much of a stack as a couple one-offs.
Yeah, exactly. Escobar, Peralta, I really like. Marte is fine. I would put him behind those two, though.
All right, let's close it out. Angels, Milwaukee. We've got ourselves Felix Pena on the mound and Brandon Woodruff. I will let you take this one, Adam, because we're up against it, and go ahead.
I'm loading up on Milwaukee again.
Yep.
Was worked out well for us last night. You get a very similar type matchup here with a pitcher in Felix Pena who has
Harvey's so bad, man.
Harvey's terrible, man.
He's so bad.
Christian Yelich striking out 3 times in that game to like cost me a GPP win is going to bother me for a while against Matt Harvey. But yeah, he's terrible. Pena has the stuff that, he can have some success against righties, but he just does not have anything to get lefties out with any sort of regularity. And now he's facing a lot of real good ones that are at, favorable price tags. I want to go right back to these Milwaukee lefties in particular, but also guys like Aguilar, Braun, Kane, obviously are good enough hitters. Just so much power top to bottom in this Milwaukee lineup. I want to go right back there. And then on the other side, if I get the some Brandon Woodruff as an SP2, I think that's fine. I think he's a good pitcher. I don't think he's anything special. Not a lot of strikeouts in the Angels lineup either, but not expecting Mike Trout to be in there makes him really, really bad. So, favorable park, a good enough pitcher in Woodruff, projected for low ownership, again, on a slate where I'm not in love with any of the chalk pitching. I do have some interest there.
All right. We're in the same spot, so I won't repeat it. We're going to head out. Live Before Lock coming up next. After this, it's the last day of basketball season. Josh will be on with Eddie Fear. And, of course, we got MLB Live Before Lock coming up as well. Before you head out, if you don't mind, and if you appreciate the content, hit us with a thumbs up, like the video. It helps us greatly, and we really appreciate it. Also, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always know when content's dropping next. And also, if you'd like to get 50% off your first month of subscription at awesomeo.com, all you got to do is use the code Deeper Dive, the promo code Deeper Dive, when you sign up. When you create a plan and sign up for a month, you'll get 50% off your first month at awesomeo.com. Premium subscription, Deeper Dive, all one word. We'll hope to see you there. Good luck. Adam and I will see you back here tomorrow. And stick around. Live Before Locks, plural, coming up next. Last day of basketball, big day for baseball. Peace.